I mean, first off, this is killed. There's no way they make the contest any bigger because there was
Well,
a ton of overlay.
yeah, I'm like in first place, and I think I'm gonna lose money. Like,
I
it's
know.
like,
I am too. I did 20, and I just went 100% on Max in the captain, 100% Red Bull and constructor, and just have lines all over the place in the contest.
how do you? I mean, it's they have to do. I don't know how do they make it. If you were in charge of DraftKings, F1, how would you change the contest?
I mean, you need to. I mean, certainly you're changing the scoring. I would have multiple, uh, not captain positions, but kind of like how FanDuel used to. I don't know if they still do, but they have like a 1.5 captain, a 1.25 captain, a 1.1 captain, or a player, something along those lines. Because with such a limited player pool, you can't have them priced up this much because everybody just ends up playing the same lines.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly. This is the one that's in first. I don't even know exactly what to root for. I mean, it's
Yeah, and
and
you
now
also want to
now
get.
now I'm like in last because I think someone tripped over their shoelace or something.
Yeah, and that's how it is. I'm the same way. I have oh man, it's a
So
mess.
yeah, it's definitely. Well, can you make like more drivers? Does that help or no?
No, because there's only 20 places on the grid,
Right, right.
and it's hard because like typically in F1, there's only one driver who like wins every race a year. Really, you know, like
Right.
Max is killing the field in this race. He won 10, 11 times last year. Lewis Hamilton did the same thing like in the prior years. Like there's only like one team that dominates the field. So betting and DFS leans to them leading every single lap, really.
And then I guess this guy I played him too. This cheapo who's like really really popular. The Hulkenberg.
Yeah,
And it looks like he had car trouble, right?
yeah. So he's an 18th. So I have 70% of him, but and then on my other ones I have Magnuson, who is his direct teammate. Um, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's a tough one. So yeah, so the first thing I want to do, hey, for everybody that's gonna come in, just come on in when you want to come in. Um, we'll go through. Well, I want to go through my single entry lineup in the Xfinity from yesterday, and then we'll get into building for the Cup Series.
Mhm.
Um, so I did pretty well actually. This is my single lineup here in the 180 here. You got like 11th. I wanted to ask you about something. I was really surprised the winner of this was able to get there with Kyle Busch. Um, it seemed really bizarre, when I just looked at the results that you get a 13.5 guy who 4x'd it or something like that, and this is probably not normal, right? I mean, you got to get this. This
So
is
I
yeah,
know we've seen Kyle do that in the truck series before, just on sheer points alone. What did that line score? That's 277.
yeah.
Yeah, so this might be the $4
I mean, he won
contest.
this
I'm looking. I
tournament like
want to
pretty handily too. I mean,
Yeah, I want to see the discrepancy between that um and the big contest to see how different the scoring was
oh,
in
it's
those
much
two.
different because this like this
Mhm.
lineup that I had that got 11th in this thing got like
Mhm.
2,000 in the lottery or something like that.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was just the fact that I assume Austin Hill wasn't owned a lot in that contest, and let me see that line
Austin
again.
Hill's nowhere. I mean, he wasn't even. Austin Hill didn't even come in. He wasn't even in the first place or the second place lineup in this one. Like he was in,
Mhm.
got in the third one.
Go back to the winner again. I'm assuming that Kyle got there just due to the fact that we had so many people like swap out who were leaders. Like this one doesn't have Nemechek,
Right.
despite the fact Nemechek led a majority of the first part of the race, and then got stuck in traffic and never did anything else past that. We had Brandon Jones, the chalk place differential play speed twice at the very end, so he got knocked out.
Yeah.
I assume this one was just a survival line that just wasn't hit by anything. Like this even has like you had Custer as well.
Yeah.
And that just I whiffed on Custer. I thought he would be way better in traffic. I think I had 80% of him, and I still had lines cash with him just due to the fact that other people ran into issues late in the race. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I didn't really get a chance to see it, but I just, listen, I love playing these. I'm a sucker for playing these guys in the poll that are kind of low owned. You know what I mean? Like if they get it going, I mean, what 118 laps led. That you can't model for that, but that's pretty freaking. That's the end of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I played.
And then real life, he loses it on the last lap as well after
that happened?
Killer performance.
Yeah. So what happened was, and then I was between a couple of guys for this last spot, and I just remember it's so funny with the way my brain works. And I remember I was between a couple of guys. I'm like, I remember you said something about Ryan Ellis last week or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, that's good enough. So I'll put him in, and I think he ended up doing just fine for me. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, what else. So and I did see that I played 3 guys in the front. And it's so funny, like people call them dominators, whatever. I'm used to again, I'm used to harness racing, and when you play guys that when you play horses that you just want to get like near the lead or in the pocket, you know what I mean? I don't even think about dominating or anything like that. I think if you're near the front, you got a good chance to lead laps. And sort of,
yeah.
So and again, I always have to worry about playing too many guys. And we talked about this last week that are going to steal from the same bucket, right? For last week. So that was pretty much that. So let's pull up my sheets for this week. And again, what I promised I would do for the sheets for everybody is I didn't do it yet. I have to do this. I have to put in a column for what starting position they're in. Now, again, that doesn't affect the sheets at all, right? Because that's already been factored in. But just for when I'm doing this, I'd like to just kind of at least visualize, you know what I mean? Like who's near the front so we can talk about this intelligently. Because you remember, where all these guys are starting, and I just forgot. I know that Larson's on the pole just because I remember, and I know Logano on the pole because I remember, and then I know that Larson is in the top 5, I think, and Byron is the 2, right, and then and Tyler Reddick is like all the way in the back, right? So first thing I will tell you, everybody that's looking at the ownership projections, they're very. I always give kind of a confidence level of the ownership projection based on partially like how much the ownership projections from everybody else is kind of differs, and my runs differ. I'm very unconfident. It's got a very, very low confidence level as far as these ownership projections. So if you wanted to like eyeball these and see which of these you think are just completely off the wall, I wouldn't, you know what I mean? Like I think that's something that can help people when they're building, you know what I mean? Because we talked about this last week. You want to try to pick low owned guys, and if your ownership projections are going to be atrocious, then it doesn't, you know what I mean? Like what's the point? So like this is the way I would look at my sheets and building lineups, right? So I see that the first 3 guys on my list are, 3 of the top guys, and they're all near the front. I'll tell you that in a second, Kenny. And then I'll see that Logano is, almost twice the ownership of these 2 guys, of Larson and Byron. And then I start thinking that, we talk about like competing for buckets and all this stuff. I mean, if you have Logano and Byron's in like, starting right next to him, I mean, if not all you need, but if Byron just gets ahead of him, like right at the beginning, you are already like, in kind of happy, you know what I mean? Because you're already like stealing, laps led from Logano literally right off the bat. And I don't know if you want, if it matters like running in clean air, if that's going to help his fastest laps as well. That's whatever. So what are you saying here, Kenny?
So for me, I mean, I'm playing, 20 lines. I have ownership spread out quite evenly. I don't necessarily have one dude that I love up here, but for me, I with these three guys, I really like Larson today,
Mhm.
and I like his teammate William Byron due to the fact that I think both of those drivers, Larson and Byron, are going to run top five all day. Byron got screwed last weekend because he was speeding on pit lane at the very end, but he would have most likely come across the line in a much better position than he did, which may have carried his ownership more. But the fact that they both showed a lot of speed last week at Auto Club, they both showed really, really good speed in practice. You know, William Byron had the best average speed across the board when you look at every lap combined, and Larson is 1 and 2. Larson and Byron are first and second and 5 lap runs and first and second and 10 lap runs. I would want to play way more Byron and Larson than what the field is going to play, and I'll be overweight on those two compared to probably what the field would do.
To answer your question, by the way, Kenny, I don't know what you're talking about. Kenny's saying that the site has Byron 1 and then Reddick 2. No, maybe you're looking at an old thing. I may have done a refresh in the last couple of hours, but this is actually the True DFS facing page, which is basically replicating the same sheet that I was just showing everybody. And I do have Logano at the top. Oh, no problem, Kenny. But thanks for pointing it out, because every once in a while that happens. Let me look at a couple of other guys that, again, this is kind of a play that again, I'm not sure what the ownership is going to be. I mean, I see like Suarez at 7,600, who rates kind of okay, but I got it's possible that it could be really, really chalky. Do you see like forget whether you like him or not? I mean, do you see like a lot of people playing him, or could he kind of go under the radar somehow?
Yeah, so I'm trying to look at your projections in terms of a numerical value, like first high or first, second, third highest and stuff. I believe that the ownerships are very very aligned
resort them
in
by
that sense.
I'm resorting them by fantasy points here, actually, if you want.
But so I think Suarez will be probably the second or third highest owned driver in my opinion, and that's where he would rank here as well. I think the ownership, at least where the idea is certainly aligned with today's with I think how the field is going to build.
Okay, got it. Now again, we speak about these three guys, Logano, Larson, and Byron. Again, like and I'm going to build in a minute, using SaberSim and see what I come up with. But I'm probably inclined. I mean, I wouldn't want to play. Listen, not that I can afford to play all three anyway, but I probably wouldn't even want to play all three if I could, just because, again, you're fighting for the same dominator points. Like, how many of these? Like, would you? I want to say in general, would you play would you spend like a lot? Let's put it another way, on two kind of high owned guys that are both going to be near the front, that are both going to be fighting for the same dominator points? I guess the answer is always it depends on the slate, right?
Yeah, I'll answer this based on just what my personal lineups are today, and I'll use Logano, Byron, and Larson specifically because they're the three that we're looking at right here. So in terms of how many of those individual drivers I would play today, I currently have 3 lineups that have all 3 of them, and then I currently have 12 lineups that have 2 of those 3 guys. So in terms of how many, I'm leaning to, and I mentioned this in some of my Xfinity content as well. One thing that I feel like I haven't done enough of, just playing DFS in general, is I don't play enough people that are going to be just top 10 or top 15 drivers in general. Maybe not necessarily competing for race wins and stuff, but I feel like I just haven't been playing enough guys in terms of like being front heavy on the starting grid enough, and so I'm really trying to do that more this year. So answering your question of how many people I would play up front or like spending a lot of money up front, I'm leaning to doing that way more this year than I have been in the past. So this, Byron and Reddick together, despite the fact that they start first and second, I'm perfectly okay with that.
Well, this is I mean, this is probably the chalk type of build to start off with, right? I mean, like Reddick is just going to project as just a smash place differential play, and it's always good to play, have a chalk play, a highly projected place differential play to go along with your, with your dominating plays, right? So something like this, whether it be Byron Reddick or whether it Byron Logano Larson, Byron Logano Larson, whatever it is. Okay. That's probably where the majority of construction, if they're building by hand, right, are kind of going to lean. Now, if you do that, I mean, I'm just going to screw around here a little bit. Like, let's just say that you played, so you couldn't do this, right? You couldn't. I mean, I guess you could, but then you are. Well, I mean, we could talk about that, but
Well, I mean, you're forced to the box, but like I mean, you can go with joy and stuff.
yeah, I mean, you could do this, but this is kind of asking for trouble a little bit. So the first thing again, that I would ask, and by the way, I don't like to, I want to say brag or screenshot or whatever it is, but listen, from the people that were here last week, I just have to say, okay, that not that he's going to always get this right, but we spent about 30% of the time about like why Kyle Busch was a good play last week.
Mhm.
and you were right on that. And then we even built like the hand-built lineup. And we're like, well, why don't we just start with this one,
Uh-huh.
Because it was a good low play. And it was so funny. We're like, we even made the comment that he got, I don't want to say he got screwed, whatever it is. I said, oh, you know what? He got mad or something like that. You don't want to get this guy mad. And then exactly what happened in the race last week. I mean, he got a penalty. And then it's so funny, like if you look at the replays where they have the crew chiefs talking to him, you know what I mean? It's like it was like awesome. You know what I mean? Like it's the worst thing you could have done is got Kyle Busch mad, right? And he ended up getting there. So that's like my first question is, I'm sitting here, and normally I would say, well, let's just play Kyle Busch again to pivot off these guys. But you know what? You're not getting too much of an ownership break off of him this week either. Because I think now you're in kind of recency bias mode.
Yeah. So okay. So I'm so happy that you brought this up because I mentioned it just now in my stuff. So I mean I like going week to week. For me, I try and have a very short memory. I think you need to have it in nearly any sport that you play. But for me, I didn't enter this weekend being like I want to play Kyle Busch or I don't want to play Kyle Busch. I just started building lines, looking at projections.
Yeah.
I have Kyle Busch projected for 53 points today. And just due to that projection, I didn't get to Kyle Busch today. Not out of like an opinion of I want to fade this man or I picked him to win last weekend. He won here. I just didn't end up getting to Kyle Busch based on practice, based on what I'm finding from other drivers. And so right now, I do not have Kyle Busch in a single lineup for me. And I feel like I'd rather get to that conclusion based on projections approaching a weekend versus entering this weekend, seeing that he's going to be highly owned and fade because of that reason. I just haven't legit ended up on Kyle Busch. I think Larson has the chance to kill this field and be just a top performer today. And I don't see him really being owned a lot. I don't really get that at all. I think Larson has the best car, as I thought Kyle Busch had the best car last weekend. Kyle Busch, he qualified fifth, but in practice, for me, as somebody who has real world experience working on race cars, if you go out and you're not happy with the car and you're coming back into the pits to make adjustments constantly in practice like he did, he would go out, run 3 to 5 laps, be like, okay guys, I'm not happy with this. He would go back down, make a change, go back out and not be happy with that change. He constantly went in and out of the track during practice. That's a red flag to me, telling me that they don't have the best car in the field. So like I said, I just haven't ended up on Kyle Busch today for a majority of reasons, but none of them being like, oh, I know exactly what I want to do. I'm going to fade him because everybody's playing him. These are just reasons I've come to conclude about Kyle Busch this weekend.
Well, it's funny that you again. I want to reemphasize what I said. I guess a couple of weeks ago. Is that for a sport that is seems like really quite variant and all and and everything else. It is to build lineups. It is very very projection based, and you can do that. And you'd think that it would not be a sport that you can do it, but it's really really true. Like if you make your projections well, it really just takes care of itself. You know, as long as you make sure that you don't get too chalky, right? The actual like building of the lineups, you can do really based on projections. So what we're going to do is again there's literally just one guy I wanted to just kind of ask you about and just see like what it takes to get there. I'm going to pull this up. I saw a really cheap guy kind of near the front, and I was wondering if it's possibly going to hang on to the top 10. I'll just throw it out there. I just a driver thing. I pulled up Saberson for a second. I see Ty Gibbs is like almost like he's like 6,600, like nearing over here, and he's like nobody's going to play him. Now again, I'm not expecting, you know what I mean? He's got no place differential here or anything like that, and I, but what does he need to get there? I mean, if he needs like first of all like. I don't know. What does he need to finish? Like top 12?
Yeah, first, yeah, he basically needs to just hold on today. Let me look exactly. I can tell you exactly what he needs. So let me get rid of his, because I have him for some fast laps. Let me goof around with what his projections are. So if he finishes 8th, that is 32 points. He needs to finish 7th today.
Okay.
That's
tough, I guess.
Yeah. So let's say he gets 34 points at 7 today. That's 5.1 value. To be honest, because I want to be, I think Joe Gibbs, Hamlin, Truex, Bell, I think they are going to carry speed. I wasn't necessarily expecting Ty Gibbs to show up this quickly in terms of qualifying well, in terms of being up here, but that team knows what they're doing. That's going to be a car. He is in a top 10 car based on speed. It is going to be, can he stay up in the top 7 or 6 today all day? I would much rather be early on him than not be. So out of my 20 lines, I have him in 3 today.
Wow.
In a sense that just in case he can stay in the top 10 all day, because it's not even necessarily him finishing, 5th or 4th. It's, can he run in the top 10 all day and just scrape off a fast lap here or there, gain some positions on pit lane or pit road. My main question to myself was, can he remain in the top 10 today? And I was like, yeah, maybe like if they run this race 100 times, he probably stays in the top 10, 15 of those races, 15%. So that was my conclusion of why I want him at least in 3 lines.
So I just ran just a Saberson build, and I try to give a little bit of an ownership fade. And I ran 50 lineups based on the projections. And again, just projections are what they are. If the projections suck, then everything's going to suck. And if everything is bad, then everything is bad. But just to kind of give you an idea, and it's funny, I did mention that the Logano, Larson, Byron, this type of thing was going to be whatever. But that doesn't mean, and with Reddick, that doesn't mean you can't play. In other words, like this lineup, for example, just for example, like Gragson and Yaley, these are like sub 10% guys. And again, like as long as you like get those types of combinations, you can still play, I think, those top guys.
So that ranking, or that lineup rank number 2, is a lot of the type of builds that I'm believing in this weekend, of not necessarily dipping into the value range of I like Eric Almirola, I like Buescher. Like I don't know if I have that line, but that's built very similar to what I'm playing.
Interesting. And so you're seeing some of this, and what you can do when you analyze these is you can say, okay, so how many of are you going to have both, like Byron and say Logano together? What does that mean? Oh, not getting any with Byron and Logano.
Oh, I think you took him out. Do you need to add?
Oh, right.
Yeah, there you
go. Byron, Logano. So how many of all of these have all? How about all 3? Logano, Byron, and Red. So you're getting of the 50 lineups, of 15 of them have all 3 of these. I guess that's reasonable. I mean, I suppose. But then again, you gotta get these other ones like really right. You know, like
Mhm.
and that's gonna be the issue. Um, what if we did something else? Like what if we again? So I do like that in this build. I'm getting a full 25% of the Noah Gragson. Now, I don't know whether what kind of play it is, whatever. But the fact again, based on the projections, he's going to show up, in 25% of lineups at 9% ownership. I kind of like that. Um, I just wonder what if you didn't honestly didn't want to play Tyler Reddick. Is there a good pivot off of Tyler Reddick? You know what I mean? Like that. And again, we talked about this last week. So let's review, right? So when we're talking about pivots, there's three different ways you could pivot. One is based on price. Second is based on position, right? Like take the same guy from the same
Mhm.
position, right? At lower ownership. I think those are the two ways, right? Was there something else?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah.
So is there anything, at least from price, that use so Bubba Wallace, you spoke about him, right? I mean,
Mhm.
he's sort of a similar price and definitely a different position, right?
So oddly enough, the Kyle Busch play for me is very similar to Reddick, to where yet again I don't enter the weekend being like I want to play or fade anybody. I just put projections and start building lines. I have not gotten to Tyler Reddick today in a single lineup.
That's
The
awesome.
the
How?
reason be the reason being for me is and this is where I'll be like open with projections. I have him for 41 points today. That's right around, let me look. Um, right around 17th.
Yep.
I think the fact that yes, we have had, several years now of limited practice and no practice, but and there's a pro and a con to Reddick, and you can argue these stances with me, or anyone can. The fact that the field got to be on the track, experience really crappy conditions. There was a lot of ill handling cars. Wind was a huge factor. Like the teams all got to experience very poor racing conditions in practice, which I think is a good thing. And you can learn a lot by what teams have in very bad conditions. So Reddick's team missed out on that. He's he's starting in the back in a field and in a race that I don't think he can necessarily drive through the field, because his mark and his aggression, leans to, places like Auto Club, Darlington, um, a lot of races or a lot of tracks like that. He can only run the high side here at Las Vegas in 3 and 4, and that's typically where we see him excel at. So the fact that you can't do that in turns 1 and 2. So we have one corner that is going to really lean into his wheelhouse that he feels comfortable in. The whole field is probably going to be doing that as well to some extent. So I think that advantage that he has is limited. The fact that he doesn't have practice, um, and the fact that I don't think he's going to really move his way into like a top 15, a top 16 driver, that's where I'm at. Now, the opposite or the argument can be made that Bubba Wallace, who I am very high on, I like Bubba Wallace a lot today because he showed us speed in this race last year when he wrecked Larson for like 6. He had a phenomenal car. They had fantastic speed in practice. So you can look at Bubba Wallace, and in my opinion, I think Bubba Wallace is going to compete for a top 10 today. So you could turn around and say, well, Brandon, Reddick is from that same team. Why wouldn't he compete for that win? Or why wouldn't he be in the same situation? I just don't think they're going to have the speed to put him in that. I think they're kind of behind the 8 ball. But the reason I'm explaining all this is because I haven't, like I said, I just ended up on no Kyle Busch and no Tyler Reddick today based on my projections and builds alone.
So we're,
So,
we're gonna we're gonna have some fun. What we're gonna do is we're gonna make project prediction too. So what I did with SaberSim, which is one of the things that's really cool about SaberSim, is I built 500 lineups. You see here, there's a
mhm.
pool of 500, and then what I do, what it lists is the top 50. And the reason why this happens, for those of you who don't know about SaberSim, is that if you make a change like in here, then you don't have to rerun everything. It just picks the next, it just reshuffles everything. Like, let's just say that I wanted to, for example, like instead of playing 22% Justin Haley, I want to do a maximum of say 10%, right? Or a minimum of 10%. We would apply. Hold on a minute. Or I'd say, let's just say I want to do a maximum of like say 60% Tyler Reddick. It automatically just gives me the 50 over here. All right. So what I want to do is this. If I X'd out Tyler Reddick, all right, would there be 50 lineups of the 500 that would show up? Probably not, right? Let's see. Let's see what happens. We're going to X him out. No, actually there are. So what that means that Xing out Tyler Reddick is not, even from a projection perspective, that bad. You know what I mean? And so
what projection are you running with Reddick? I forgot to look.
Oh, it was higher. It was like 49.
Okay.
It was 49. But the point is, even with a 49 projection, like Xing him out doesn't like make these lineups hopeless. It still makes it competitive. And and that's one thing that's kind of cool to do, is that sometimes if you really try to do something off the wall, SaberSim will yell at you. They're like, we cannot build lineups, of the 500, whatever it is. So the fact that it doesn't yell at you is a real big deal. So what ends up happening, and then you like to see, is what happens to your lineups without him. Not surprisingly, I guess you're getting much more. I'm not much more Suarez, but yes, more Suarez. And what else shows up here more than it was? Like, you get more, I guess, more Eric Almirola. Justin Haley shows up like 30%. Brian Blaney gets into the mix when we do this for some reason. But one thing that also happens, but it doesn't happen, it happened before, is I'm not getting any Kyle Busch either, by the way.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm glad that it's at least showing me that there's some type of survival chance by now.
Right.
I mean, we're at this point, we're on the road, or the conclusion that I'm on. Like, this is kind of where I'm building. This is where I'm at. And valid, I forgot the word right now, but showing that even with a higher projection of Reddick, where his ownership is really an issue. Like, it's not that his projection is an issue, but if he's easily going to be the highest or the second highest owned driver, and we can see that there's a realistic chance that you can build lines that don't use him.
Exactly.
I'm like, now this is a situation where I'm like, oh yeah, I could totally support, a Reddick, fade or being lower owned, but I'm happy to get to that conclusion, not start at that conclusion and find a reason to be there.
Exactly. And that's again, people talk about, it's one thing to give picks, another thing to give process. And this is literally what I do, like, all the time, right? I'll build my lineups, and then I'll test an opinion out. You know what I mean? Like, an NBA, this happens all the time. I'll get like some chalk 3K guy, and I'm like, okay, if I X him out, what's going to happen to me? And most of the time in the NBA, like, you just can't really fade chalk too much, right? And so SaberSim will just yell at me, like, you out of your mind? In SaberSim's own way, it'll say, are you out of your mind? One of my products is going to be when they actually talk to you like that. Like, we have kind of like ChatGPT saying, are you a moron? You want to take him out or something like that? So this is actually pretty useful, actually. The other thing is, I keep forgetting to ask you, do you ever intentionally leave money on the table in NASCAR, or you just kind of let them roll?
I let it roll. I feel with how close NASCAR is in terms of salaries usually being correct, I don't go out of my way to purposely leave salary on the table. I usually, most of my lines usually leave, anywhere from 0 to maybe 600, 800, but I very rarely not get at least $49,000 spent.
Well, one thing you can do, by the way, if you want to compare these, so the lineups with Reddick in them, right? They're all about, now hold on, I have to do a couple things. The lineups with Reddick in them, if we rate them by projected score, okay, and again, this is your mileage may differ, right? But you're talking about, between like, 250, 260 to 270, like basically that area. Okay. And then we go back to Xing him out. Okay. You're really not killing yourself, and once again, you're like 269. So you're really not killing yourself by doing that. Right. But not only that, and this is like for another lesson, but SaberSim, you could rate them by one of two ways. You can rate them by projected score, or you can rate them by what's called Saber score. And what Saber score is, it's sort of primitive, but it's better than nothing. It actually rates a lineup based on both, projected points and upside and ownership fade and things like that. So like you'll see, like even this has a Saber score. This is like the highest Saber score or whatever. And sometimes the highest Saber score is not necessarily going to be the highest projected score. Like this one's gets 266, but you go down and this one, the projected score is 269, but no, it's higher owned, so we're going to ding it. You know what I mean? So that's what. And again, Saber score is listen, it's better than nothing. It's like anything else. If you knew exactly how to rate a lineup based on a combination of ownership, upside, or whatever, if you knew that, then you broke DFS. You know what I mean? And whatever. If everybody knew that, that would be the end of the game. So they're doing it, doing a possibility. But again, even rating them by projected score, you can get away with that and full fade Reddick if you wanted to. Listen, he's a good play, right? I mean,
yeah.
Like,
and he's safe. I mean, he's safe. Like,
do,
he's not going to kill a line at all.
What you could do is that you could play. You could split the difference. You could play Reddick, but then you can make sure that only your really low owned lineups would get Reddick. Like you would say something like
if you're playing Reddick, Ty Gibbs kind of makes sense.
Beautiful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
More to the point, like if you have Logano and Larson or Logano and Byron in a lineup, don't play Reddick. You can do that.
Yeah.
And if you really wanted to be aggressive, you could say, if you have even just Logano in a lineup, don't play Reddick. I presume he's gonna be the highest owned of all these guys, right? So you could even do that.
What do your pulls look like? So it's pulling BJ McLeod a lot for you.
This is with the Reddick out, by the way.
What does it do if you X him out? Because when I was goofing with lines earlier, it wanted to play him, and I think that's a gross play.
And you right. You know what? And that's kind of a cool analytical term, and I say that like lovingly. Like when I'm just not doing it, or it's just gross. That's totally. This is very reasonable. Okay. So if you don't want, the
reason I brought it up is because we're kind of in the same, at least on screen, the builds are similar to what I was doing last night. But I X'd him out, and I want to see what it does here.
So now what this is Xing him out just to keep track, and Reddick out. Okay. So for Xing him out and Reddick out, then, well, first of all, you're not costing yourself anything really, and
and I want to explain to anybody listening why I said that is because I was looking at the pool ownership that was currently on, and I saw BJ in 17% of the pool, which I forgot how many lines that was right now. But I was like, that's a lot of lines that, like I said, seemed gross to me. I wanted to see what changed, who got in, or whatever the case was when you X'd them out. That's why I asked you to do that.
Yeah, so you get a little more Justin Haley. Who pokes his head in here? JJ Yaley, get 10% of that, I suppose. But more to the point, if you just don't think that he can compete, you know what I mean? That's possible. It's, every once in a while you're like, listen, I'm just not. It's so funny. I remember, your videos. You're like, I'm just not doing it. You know what I mean? I don't even really get into it. I'm just not doing it. Yeah, probably gonna be 7 laps down or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just a disaster. So that's what you could do. Whether it's NASCAR, basketball, NHL, or whatever. And what's cool about, like I said, if you use this tool, you could see what happens immediately. When you X those guys out. And then again, another thing you could do, like you said, is that if you just want to, and listen, I think this is healthy, sort of. Like if you just want to play a guy like more, like if you're like, boy, oh boy, I know what the projection said, but I just got a feeling about
Mm-hmm.
who else, anybody, like Chris Busher, you know what I mean? Like I got a feeling about Chris Busher. I just feel like playing him more. You could literally just put him in there at 20, and you don't even have to recrunch. Just automatically, just kind of does. Now again, with
Mm-hmm.
everything you do, there's a yang. You know what I mean? Like something's
Yeah,
got
to
to yang
pull, yeah, push away somebody. Yeah.
whatever. But that's why, again, that's why I like to use this thing, because number one, it builds lineups fine, but it also allows you to analyze, and it does promote thinking somewhat. So I kind of like. Is this the last lap of the thing?
Oh, I think so. I mean, like, yeah,
And,
Verstappen he led flag to flag. That's fantastic.
am I gonna win money? Probably not. Let's see.
And
Oh
then
yeah.
also another thing about F1, it takes a while for us to get like the scoring for each of
Oh,
the
I didn't
team
know that. Is
drivers.
that true?
Yeah, so right now the standings are not accounting for the team, like the teammate versus, because that's 5 points.
Oh, okay.
So let me go through. So
Well,
like
you should.
versus,
So I'm going to add that to my project. So that's the third sport that this has shown up. So there's LOL and there's MMA. All right. So LOL, they sometimes don't put up the final scores for like an hour
yeah,
after it's over.
Counter Strike's the same way.
Oh,
I
is that
mean,
right?
yeah, it's a pain in the ass to keep
Well,
along and
well,
stuff. Yeah.
but one thing I'm working on, and MMA has that too. MMA is not that bad. It's like maybe like 10 minutes, but people can't wait. They want to know what it is right away.
Yeah, and I mean, it takes a while to get all the significant strikes and everything updated.
Yes. However, what we're working on is doing a real time thing where we're going to take the data from the data provider and pump it into a thing and give like an unofficial, you know what I mean? Like DraftKings Live for people to sweat. So I'm going to add the F1 to that. So the one that DraftKings waits on are the team. Coach, that's right. You get points for passing your teammate or beating.
So it's basically like a head to head against your teammates. Like Verstappen will get an additional 5 points because he'll beat Sergio Perez once the race is over. And so
Why is that?
Because each team has two drivers, and so DraftKings has a scoring of, it'll give 5 points to whatever driver of each team.
But what's the logic behind that?
I guess they needed more way to.
But is that like something you want to be rewarded for passing your teammate instead of another teammate, another person?
I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. No, I really don't know.
The F1 product, I do not like the F1 product on DraftKings at all.
Is it because, again, like I'm trying to think of how F1 works, because otherwise everybody would just kind of like collude and just.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's not necessarily colluding. Like Verstappen, I'll use the two Red Bull drivers for an example. Like, they're not going to collude to like give one driver more advantage over the other. This was literally just, I think it was just another. I think it was simply they just needed a way to score teammates and stuff. But yet again, 5 points on F1 is massive. That is a huge amount of points, and it yet again forces a lot of duplicated lines because there's so little people who can get those 5 points that you can play.
Right. Any chance that L Sargent like passed a bunch of his guys? I don't know.
I just lost or not lost it. They just took the standings off the TV, so I have no idea where people finished. I'd have to see. I think
know. L Sargent came in 12th. I don't know.
Let me see where Albon finished. So Alexander, his teammate, finished 10th. So Sargent won't get the 5 bonus points.
Oh, okay.
And then also the F1, like real unlike NASCAR, F1 only gives like season points to the first 10 drivers. So DraftKings does the same thing. So if your driver doesn't finish in the top 10, they don't get additional points either.
Okay.
It's a pain. It's a huge pain.
Do you play on do you play FanDuel?
For NASCAR here and there.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Do you play?
Yeah, I'm playing today. Yeah.
Yeah. So, may as well run the optimals for FanDuel. Now, again, it's if you look at the sheets for FanDuel, it's a little wonky, right? Like it is for a lot of things with FanDuel. So, like if you look at things by like say points per dollar, like it's always like the cheapos. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like that you don't need to play pretty much. Like that's so when you rate them this way, you might get all like you might get all really really weird. Even by value score, it's like all really weird. Oh, to answer your right. So don't worry too much about the way the sheets look as far as this goes. This is much more of just like having numbers to kind of just throw into your optimals. I mean, throw into your optimizers. So let's just do that um and see what we come up with. We'll build 50 again just to see. Um, we're going to give it a little bit of an ownership fade as well, and we'll just see what we come up with. Now, instinctively, is there anybody that's like that looks better on FanDuel as opposed to the drafting? So, by the way, before you even answer that, here's a question I never asked: is the scoring the same?
No.
Okay, so what's the difference? That's relevant.
Scoring on FanDuel is much more like front heavy in terms of like place, like where people finish is way more important on that than DraftKings, because FanDuel does not give fast lap points. They only give lap led points, and I think it's 0.1 points or something along. I haven't thought about it in forever, but let me look real fast.
So finishing position is more important on FanDuel. That's I guess that's why all those 2K guys in the back just don't.
Yeah, that's why. Like, so FanDuel, very similar to F1 on DraftKings. FanDuel has even a smaller player pool for NASCAR, not only because you're just using 5 drivers, but because there's so many people not viable. And you also get points for laps completed on FanDuel. So if somebody wrecks out early, that lineup is killed because they don't accrue points for a lap completed on FanDuel.
Well, on FanDuel, I run it, and I'm not seeing as far as exposure goes. I mean, it's the same. Looks to be the same types of.
Mhm.
Well, I say it looks to be the same guys, but what you're also not getting are all those bow wows. You know what I mean? Because you don't need them. You know, like you said, you're only 5 spots, right? I am getting a couple of one lineup with the Todd Gilliland, I guess. But aside from him, even I mean, everybody else is above. You know what I mean? None of the dumpsters are in there, and I guess that's normal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So nothing too different here. And listen, if you play FanDuel, just be prepared for the big chop parade. But hey, we'll take it. No problem chopping with 15 people in one of these things. That's for sure. All right. I guess that's gonna pretty much do it. All this, hopefully, to everybody was really helpful. And again, if we can do this every week and do it in a way that we really have not spent any time saying who the best picks are. I mean, we did because we ran lineups and whatever. But hopefully, again, this is going to sound really stupid that you got much less out of what's going to happen today, and a little bit more out of how to use this in the future.
Yeah, just moving forward week. I mean, that's why I like being here. I mean, I can learn a lot from you and viewing this stuff as well. This isn't just,
All right. Well, listen,
I enjoy being here.
Listen, but we have. I'm gonna. You know what? Not because you asked me to, because you never asked me to, but I'm gonna do it anyway. So, for those of you listen, there are 30 people here. I promise you that if it was just me doing it, there'd be 2 people here, whatever. So I guess the people that here know Brandon from my Discord or whatever. But if you're here for the first time, like Brandon, he has a number one. He does have a free YouTube channel, and he also has a Patreon, which is going through. You can talk about that if you want, but it's going through different life stages and different iterations and different characteristics, like everything does. But just overall, support him in whatever way you all feel appropriate. And again, why don't you take like 2 minutes to talk about your Patreon? And especially considering what's going on with it now, if that's even worth talking about. But
yeah, I mean, I'll just talk about what it is now. Now it's I was splitting it before with another individual. Now I'm not. And all the Patreon's 20. I have different tiers. 2 of them are basically just support tiers. One is the $3, one is the $10. In case you like anything I do for free, and you either don't like sending super chats on the YouTube live stream or whatever. And then $25 is just what my projections are for each and every race and kind of my opinions on each driver and like a little heat map and stuff. But that's really all it is. The Patreon is more so just to support everything that I do in terms of, hopping on here, hopping on, my own live show, my videos. I've really started trying to put out more content this year of like my process in building lineups, in case that helps anybody out, or in case you can learn either from my mistakes or what I do right, whatever the case may be. So the Patreon at this point is really just to support me being able to do this and not have to work like a real job or anything. Same thing with the YouTube ad revenue and stuff. So that's really what the project, or that's really what Patreon is for me.
So listen. If you're here on True DFS and you learn anything from here, whether you hit something or not, and if you learn something or not, if you want to like whatever, don't send me any money. You know what I mean? Like I'm fine. If you're a member of True DFS, whatever. I mean, help Brandon out. Do whatever. That's what Patreon's for. And because you listen, and we talked about this before, is that, and this is what they do. Like people that have Patreons, they don't really put anything like that's special on the Patreon, right? He, like you said, he just puts his projections and his heat map up, which are great, whatever. But that in and of itself is probably not worth 30 a month. But what it is it's to reward him for all the freaking free stuff he does. You know what I mean? All the YouTube stuff and like all of that. So make sure you learn anything to help him out. All right, that'll do it. Good luck, everybody, and listen, we'll probably do this next week.
Yeah, let's start doing it weekly Sundays. So best of luck to you, Sheets, and good luck, everybody.